What you need to do is you need to upload this only on Swiss Forex Trader.
Yes.
Right. So exclusive. You can only get it.
Yes.
On there. So you have to sign up.
Okay, hey guys, welcome back to the Swiss Forex Trading Podcast. We are day 2 of the FX Summit, and I'm flagging a little bit. Yesterday we went out on a yacht party. It was crazy. We didn't drink too much, but I'm feeling it today. Then we went to watch the basketball game in Miami, and getting back took like what, hour and a half to drive 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's crazy. All right, how are you feeling?
I'm really, I'm
Mario's not with it. Mario's not with it today. But anyway, please.
But I am very happy to be here, guys, with you and
Absolutely.
a lot of good people here in the FX Summit. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
A man that needs no introduction. 0 introductions. Who do we have today? Mr. Riz. Mr. Riz, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. It's Riz from Words of Rizdom. And it's a pleasure to be here. Obviously, I've not met you, had the pleasure to meet you before, but Joel, I haven't met before, but I've heard the whispers in the
Forex industry.
That's it. And we have mutual friends, and I've seen what you've been doing. Actually, to be fair to you, I've came across your content years ago.
Really?
Yeah, years ago. And I used to think, this guy's he's doing really good content, especially back then because there wasn't much people putting value out like that.
Now
so,
it's flooded. Now it's flooded with rubbish.
Did you set the tone? Did you set the tone for the
the
content?
People copy me. What can you do? I'm copyrighted. But anyway, this is a pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Absolutely.
I've got so many interesting questions to ask because you've come into this space and destroyed it. Like absolutely destroyed it. And I'm kicking myself that I'm not in your position right now. And I fully admit that. So when did you come up with the idea of creating a podcast?
The actual idea came before I even became a trader. It was like 7 years ago now.
Wow.
That was the actual idea to want to do it.
Yeah.
But then this is the prime example and lesson of actually taking the action. So I just talked myself out of it. I assumed I needed to have a studio, and have all the best equipment. And so therefore I need to make tens of thousands or even more before I can even start. Yeah. I made the list and everything. I had the list of guests that I would have. I had the name at the time, which I was going to call it the Hope Dealer Podcast. I had everything planned out. Yeah. I even made the page and started posting and said, I'm going to start doing it. Because I did also think, okay, I could start like with Zoom or anything like that. But again, the fear of, one, talking myself out of it in regards to not having the equipment, but also the fear of other people's opinions at that time was like stopping me. And it just goes to show, look, if I had started 6-7 years ago, where would I be? Yeah. Because look what's happened in the last year. Yeah. So then it picked up again, actually, when I was working at Astro. That's when I first had opportunity to have like a camera guy. The camera guy there, I remember I grabbed him and said, I want to do a podcast. I have an opportunity here. So we did I think 5 or 6 episodes. So if you look at the first 5 or 6 episodes, they're in the basement at the Mayfair office. Right? Actually, Noah, who's just stood there, he was the first guest. Right? He's right there. But yeah, the first 5 or 6 were there. Then I left there, and then therefore there was a gap. Yeah, and I was doing like usual content, on YouTube, case studies, mindset videos. But though I enjoy value, I want to help people. But that's, as we were talking about, that's saturated, Yeah, and everyone's doing it. So what's the point? Where's the uniqueness? Yeah. And then I went on someone else's podcast, and I learned that you can hire spaces. So once I learned that, I just went all in. I just went all in because that was what I enjoyed. That's what I was passionate about. And it's raw, it's unscripted, it's conversation, and conversations can go anywhere. And then that's where it sort of sparked from. And then a year later, literally a year to pretty much this month, is when we went all in, and it's been incredible.
Yeah.
And Riz, which one was the biggest challenge that you faced during the making of your podcast?
With the podcast, you know what it was? It was actually learning what podcasting is. I was watching, as you can imagine, the inspiration came from like Joe Rogan and those podcasts that we saw. That he was pretty much one of the only podcasts back then. 7 years ago, he was the biggest, even to this day, probably one of the biggest podcasts. And I remember just watching it and thinking, wow, this is it's so good, being able to have conversations with people and have a laugh and a joke, and people watching and it can build and it can help people. But what I realized more recently, and especially through going through the journey myself, was that he's a comedian. Let's not forget he's a comedian. Yes. So he can do these jokes and have sort of like have banter and then go off topic and people still tune in because he's a comedian and his friends are comedians. Yeah. So that makes sense. But I'm not a comedian. Sure. I'm a bad comedian if I am one, but I'm not a comedian. So when I first did my first few episodes again, when we first started up again, I had it with like my friends and people I knew, and we were just like kind of bantering and thinking that people will get value from this. But in reality, who wants to sit there and just listen to a bunch of friends, maybe where they're jokes that people won't understand because they weren't there or whatever it may be. So if you notice the first few episodes, they weren't podcasts essentially. It was basically just a bunch of lads just talking and bantering. So I had to, the biggest lesson I had to learn was learning how to listen. Learning how to ask proper questions and how to actually podcast, be a host rather than just, okay, we're on video and we're on camera and we're just laughing and joking and people might watch it or not, So that was the biggest lesson actually, because I started to get comments eventually when I was starting to get more guests. They were like, basically like, just stop talking. And I was like, but it's a conversation. But what I understood was that podcasting is about you stepping back. Just ask a question, let them answer, and then off the back of the question, it's not really about trying to give your side, right? It's actually about using whatever they get, whatever answer they gave, maybe give a little summary of what they said, maybe another side if it's a polarizing sort of topic, but then pivot based off what they've said, if that makes sense. So it's not about you anymore. So there was a bit of ego, like that had to be shifted, because it was easy for me to be like, this is my podcast and this is, it's a conversation, etc. When in reality, it's no, you're a host, and therefore you're extracting value from others.
I think that's going back to what you were saying about not starting. That's a testimony to start, whatever it is. If it's in the Forex space or any sort of space, starting something, you would have been, I don't know.
Who knows? Exactly.
Who knows where you would have been? Maybe you would have been interviewing Joe Rogan. but yeah, it's a clear message to everyone that just do it. Just do it. Don't be scared of anyone's opinions. Don't be scared of what could happen. Be scared of where you might get to.
Yeah, because you learn the process, making it.
Definitely.
And then making it.
And it's the journey. You've met so many amazing people. I mean, I want to take your phone because I know that contact list is heavy. It's a heavy hitter contact list. So you being so accessible to all of these people, do you trade first of all?
I do trade, yeah.
You do. So now that you have all of these people, would you say that your trading has improved, hearing it firsthand from people and connecting with people? Behind the scenes, you've got more conversations than what we hear.
Of course, yeah.
So have you improved in your trading?
In a way, yes. There's two aspects of it. There's one aspect where it's a negative because you're hearing people talk about maybe a certain style, technique, whatever it may be, and then you're like, oh, that sounds good. That sounds like maybe something I could try. But then reality being, that's not how trading works. That's not how we're meant to trade. We're meant to just follow your system. So like if it's too easy, luckily I'm at a certain experience level where we don't have to worry about that because we're already pushing forward, for example. When in reality, behind the scenes though, I'm speaking to them as well, and we're talking about their journey or what they've scaled to, or some of more of their sort of lessons that they've learned along the way as well. And there's some things that I picked up. There was one key lesson that really resonated with me. It was a podcast with Tans from Vertex, right? Vertex Trading. And it was very simple. Again, a very simple thing where he was just like, look, I only trade 2 hours a day. I only trade the London session only, right? And then I realized and resonated with myself because I was at the time trying to trade London session and New York. But with everything that I've got going on with the podcast and with the family and like with the education I was doing at the time, it was like, this is too much. And then trying to trade both, what I was doing was unconsciously, I was like trying to predict New York whilst I was trading London, which shouldn't be the way. It should be like, okay, have that gap and then come fresh for me anyway. So then when he said that, I was like, that's such a simple thing. Like if I'd literally just trade London, that now opens up my time to be more efficient with everything else and actually manage everything else. So I do get to learn quite a lot, like data collection as well from having Umar Ashraf on and learning about the trade zealot side of things. Even like having Black Watch on, for example, and him saying about, we make human error. We're human error at the end of the day, so that we're human, so we make human errors, and therefore, not to strive for perfection. Try our best to be perfect, but not to sort of weigh ourselves down if we make a mistake. We learn from it. So all these little things, but then over time they build up and just improve as a trader. And that's what I always say. It's like, really, it's a selfish thing, the podcast for me, because like it's a byproduct that everyone else gets the value. But for me, it's like I'm learning, I'm getting these conversations, and it gives me an opportunity, like you said, to really meet with these titans in the industry who we've seen for so long, and suddenly now they're sitting opposite me. And I remember the first one which was like Mark Hutchinson, where I sat opposite him the first time. It was like I was really nervous. That was like the first sort of bigger guest. I was really nervous, and then as time went on a bit, it's just become more normal now, to meet people and just not really feel that nervousness. Because what I've realized as well is that everyone kind of goes through the same journey, and that's what the focus of the podcast is, to sort of dive into what was your journey, what was the lows that led to the highs, and then from doing that, there's so many repeating patterns, right? There's so many patterns in terms of what leads people to success so far anyway.
Yeah, it's all about experience with everything that you do, Do you still feel nervous now? Like just coming here, for example, do you still get those pre-podcast butterflies?
Yeah, and let me add, are you able to tell us the bearish moment and the bullish moment of this project?
Of the podcast,
The personal one.
The personal one, yeah. So like in terms of like nervousness, I was nervous here for the summit, for example, because they asked me to do like the moderation on the stage, like to ask questions in front of the huge crowd. So that was something very, very different. But then doing the podcast here live, not so much, just because again I've done that so many now, repetition. It's like the charts, right? Yeah. Like when you're new and you haven't put your feet in, gone into those deeper waters. Yeah. That's where a lot of people are hesitant to, and they have that sort of analysis paralysis, or they struggle to place the trades, or the opposite where they overtrade. While with me, I've done that many reps now in the podcast, sort of filming wise. Yeah. It's become more second nature. That's become like my, if you will, like expertise, right? So now, like, it's more so that my guests are kind of nervous, not because of me, but just generally, because they might not have done podcasts and stuff. So I'm like helping them to be like, just calm, just relax, So for me, it's so easy to be in front of like a light and a camera, while a lot of people might sit here and be like, oh, feel a bit overwhelmed. But because it's like the reps, it's much more easier. In terms of like the bearish moment, for example, like the lows of this project, the lows have been more so like making sure we stay consistent, keep the consistency. The lows, one of the hardest things has been like, choosing the guest and making sure as we talked about, when we did our podcast over here, like the scammers, the people who may be deceitful, because it's hard to tell sometimes, right? And you won't really tell until they're there with you, right? Because then based on your questions, you will hopefully hear some answers where you're like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. As someone who does trade, I can understand that doesn't make sense there. And then I'm hoping that, but also I don't want to be confrontational, like aggressive. So that's not the sort of tone I want to do. Yeah. But equally, I need to. But that's the negative bit where I'm still learning, right? And I'm still learning now to be a bit more, not aggressive, but a bit more blunt and say that doesn't sound right. Yes. And then get their response. Allow them to respond, but not attack them. So I'm still learning, because I'm a bit nice guy. Like I don't like confrontation in that sense. Yeah. But at the end of the day, as the host, it's my job to ask those hard questions. So if I fail to ask the hard questions, I'm failing as a host. Yeah. Right. Well, with the positive side, I've been able to listen to the audience a lot. And the feedback the audience have given me, I don't recognize it within myself, but they say like you're a good listener and you ask good questions and you pivot well. So like,
well spoken, very well spoken.
That's thanks to my mom. that's thanks to my mom. She hated it. I was actually apparently. I spoke a lot better when I was younger. Yeah. But I started hanging around with certain people and I picked up some
slang.
Yeah, exactly. Slang. And she was like, "What have you done? What have you done? All my hard work." I was like, "I'm so sorry."
And what about the bullish one?
The bullish one is more like, I would say like the feedback, the response from everyone, the growth that we've had as well. Those moments have really motivated me to go even harder. I'd say one of the bullish and bearish moments is the amount that I've been doing, right? It's really good, of course, filming all these podcasts and traveling, and it sounds cool, but the bearish side of it is like so tiring. The bearish side of it also is that, to do this properly, you do want that time to be able to research your guest, look at some of the content they may have put out before, and so therefore you can be more prepared and have questions prepared. I don't like to prepare questions, to be fair, because obviously we want it to be real, but at least know who your guest is and see what they've spoken about before, so you're not repeating what they've already said. So, but the negative of doing all of these podcasts, like by filming and doing like 5 in a day or whatever it may be, is that it doesn't leave room to research, right? So therefore it can lessen the quality because you haven't had that chance. Yeah. So like it's bullish and negative, bullish and bearish, because the bullish side is that it's incredible to be able to go and do these podcasts and film as many as we have. But the negative side is that maybe if they were spread out, it might be better, of course, because it gives you that time. So it's finding that balance once again.
Yes, because the goal at the end of the story is to give value, to share value with people. That's our trading podcast.
Definitely.
You're doing an amazing job of that. Well, guys, Thank you.
I'm really excited to.
I appreciate it.
Because it was a great experience for me. Yeah.
What you need to do is you need to upload this only on Swiss Forex Trader.
Yes.
Right. So exclusive. You can only get it.
Yes.
On there. So you have to sign up.
Yes.
Right. That's what you have to do.
Riz is gonna be on there. He's gonna create an account.
I'm gonna create an account. Yeah.
He's gonna be on there.
I'll post my podcast on.
I will.
Exclusively.
That's
No more on YouTube, guys. You heard it here first.
$100 million deal.
Yeah,
Is that sign?
bellissimo.
I love it.
But yeah,
So
guys.
thanks a lot, guys, and see you on the next one. It's been a pleasure.
Good pleasure. Thank you.